Tanse, good evening. I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to a special weekend wrap-up edition of APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Dozens of protesters were outside the Edmonton Court of King's Bench last Monday morning as 38-year-old Brian Farrell was to have a bail hearing for his 15 charges related to the death of 14-year-old Samuel Bird. As APTN's Chris Stewart reports, the bail hearing never happened.
Monday morning, 38-year-old Brian Farrell was scheduled for a bail hearing in Edmonton. He has been charged with second-degree murder, interfering with a body, arson, 3 counts of assaulting a peace officer, and more in relation to the death of Samuel Bird. The bail hearing was delayed until November 10th.
No bail for Brian Farrell! No bail for Brian Farrell!
Outside the courthouse, dozens of supporters of Samuel Bird's family were chanting for justice for Samuel Bird and for Brian Farrell's bail to be denied.
So we're all down here rallying for Samuel Bird because we want justice, because he was only a 14-year-old boy. So we came down here, we're protested, people made signs.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it?
I know some of the family growing up, so it hit a little bit closer to me. I had went to school with some of the younger, his older relatives. So being a part of the community, it hits different.
Samuel Bird's grandfather, Calvin Bird, spoke to APTN.
Every child matters. Samuel Bird matters. That's what we're all here for. And I really appreciate the support that's behind me here. I don't know half of them or most of them, and I'm really grateful for them being here. I'm grateful for the car horns that go by here.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
All we want is justice to be served, and we hope to get that. You know, it's been too long to go without knowing where my grandson was, but last week we found out where he was, and now he can be put to rest. He's been missing since June 1st, so I'm very grateful for the work the police have done.
There will likely be another protest on November 10th, the next bail hearing date. None of the charges have been proven in court. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
The Carney government introduced legislation on Thursday that seeks to tighten the rules around applying for bail for those charged with certain crimes. But some fear the proposed changes will only lead to an even greater overrepresentation of Indigenous people within the prison system. Both the Assembly of First Nations and Aboriginal Legal Services say they were not consulted with. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Justice Minister Sean Fraser spoke at a press conference outside the Department of Justice building in Ottawa Thursday afternoon. He said Canadian streets are not as safe as they used to be, but admitted the government doesn't have data on whether people on bail commit more crimes.
When it comes to the management of bail and the data collection of the bail system, there's obviously a role for provinces to play as well. The ability of the court to actually enforce some of these rules will depend on a change in practices in some circumstances of the province's need to collect data about what kind of offences are going through the bail system and are actually leading to a bail decision in one direction or another.
At the presser, Fraser spoke about Bill C-14. If it passes, an accused will be more likely to be denied bail, because the accused will have to prove they should be granted bail rather than on the prosecution arguing they should be denied. Jonathan Rudin is the Special Projects Director of Toronto-based Aboriginal Legal Services. He said it is already incredibly difficult to get bail in our system, and the proposed changes will only negatively affect Indigenous people.
So this notion that we have this crisis, so many people are getting released from custody, from bail, and going out and committing crimes, that's just not happening. And that's a concern. And of course, from our perspective, the biggest concern is most of these amendments, most of these tougher on crime, purported tougher on crime amendments, have a disproportionately negative impact on Indigenous people. And that's obviously one of our real concerns.
When asked if the legislation would only increase the number of Indigenous people behind bars, Fraser said the government is working with Indigenous organizations to ensure this does not happen.
I've had a number of conversations in recent weeks in particular about the importance of implementing the Indigenous justice strategy, on working not just with provinces and territories, but with Indigenous governments to understand how we can have enhanced community policing, enforcement of Indigenous laws that are adopted by communities, and relying on solutions that are advanced by individual First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities more broadly.
In separate press releases, the Canadian Police Association applauded the proposed changes, while the Canadian Civil Liberties Association panned them. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The Independent Investigation Unit in Manitoba says they will not be recommending charges against 2 Winnipeg police officer members who struck and killed a woman while driving their vehicle near a camp for homeless people in September of last year. APTN's Tiara Wheatley reports.
She was always a good kid, always. And, you know, she had a tough time going onto the streets and stuff, but our family still loved her. My dad.
Lori Bateman is remembering her sister Tammy Bateman. On September 2nd of 2024, around 9:27 p.m., Winnipeg police officers were driving their cruiser near a homeless encampment when they struck Tammy. She was taken to hospital but died of her injuries. The Independent Investigation Unit took over the investigation, interviewing 2 officers along with 3 other people who were witnesses. The IIU says now they will not move forward on any charges against the Winnipeg police.
In my eyes, I still haven't got an apology for what happened to my sister. And even with the report that's out there, I still don't think that they're taking accountability for what they did. Saying that they drove down the gravel very slowly, idling.
Lori says the family is upset with the investigation.
I just didn't feel like it was a good vibe coming from them, that they weren't there for me, they were there for the police officers.
According to Lori, Tammy was a member of the Roseau River Anishinaabe First Nation and was living in a homeless encampment along Winnipeg's Red River. Lori told APTN News her and Tammy, along with Tammy's brother, were adopted in foster care by the Bateman family as infants. Lori says her sister Tammy suffered mental health issues and had struggled in school before becoming homeless in Winnipeg, but they always kept in touch. When the incident with Tammy happened, Lori also said Winnipeg police did not contact the family. Instead, they found out about Tammy's death through friends 2 days later. Despite her hurt and anger, Lori is hoping the new police chief, Jean Bowers, will reach out to her now that the report is done. First for an apology and then to strategize to find solutions for relatives that are homeless and forced to live on the street or in encampments.
We need to all work together with the Winnipeg police so this never happens again.
Tiara Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Canadian Armed Forces will be making a formal apology to veterans next week. We'll have that story coming up after the break. Welcome back. The Canadian Armed Forces will be making a formal apology to veterans who have faced racial discrimination and harassment next week in Ottawa. Amongst the crowd will be a 66-year-old retired corporal from the Lake Manitoba First Nation in southern Manitoba. He was one of the first to openly speak out about the issue. Here's APTN's Tiara Wheatley.
30 years after the fact, I'm giving an apology.
Retired Corporal Melvin Swan says it's going to be bittersweet to hear the words, "We are sorry." He's been invited to Ottawa for a formal military apology on October 30th.
In my personal opinion, my health and body has been affected, as well as my spirit. There's so much distrust. I had nothing for 20 years. No veterans benefits, nothing.
In 1994, Swan won a human rights case against the military. The tribunal ruled the forces violated his rights by not properly investigating at least 8 specific cases of racism.
Many instances of discrimination under the Charter of Rights, Sections 7, 10, and 14.
Swan joined when he turned 18.
First I became a Patricia, PPCLI, for 4 years, then I remustered to the military police. The badge I wore was a Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is personal with me. It's my spirit, my name. And for them to run away from me, not want to hear the truth, it's ironic.
He left in 1988 after serving 12 years.
I loved the military, and it was my place to go to after day school, residential school, and boarding school. So the military, ironically, was my saving grace.
He attended the Mackay Residential School in Dauphin, Manitoba.
And for this, we are sorry.
Swan heard those words once before in Ottawa in June 2008 as a survivor of the IRS system. But he says this soon-to-be military apology is much more personal. He's hoping to line up meetings in the near future to discuss recommendations moving forward.
What goes beyond this apology, I think, is I want to see a spiritual health policy for Veterans Affairs to adapt, first of all, so they can look at our traditional way of life and acknowledge who we are in this country, because without that, there's no truth and reconciliation. I want to see more integration and training for our people with an Indigenous regiment here in Winnipeg.
Expanding on opportunities like the Bold Eagle and Junior Ranger programs, both of which he had a helping hand in getting off the ground. Tiara Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Mi'kmaq community of Listuguj recently completed its annual fall fishing for lobster in the Gaspé region of Quebec. APTN News joined a Listuguj fishing boat to take part in the annual tradition, and our reporter Savannah Craig takes us along for the ride.
Fishing is a fast-paced job.
Pulling up my hand.
Filled with stunts and even injuries.
Went deep, man. It hit the bone of my thumb. Oh.
These men are fishing jagay, also known as lobster in the Mi'kmaq language. Le Cap is one of the boats taking part in Listuguj's annual fall lobster fish. It runs from September 28th to October 12th. Timmy Steele Wiseau owns the boat. He runs it with a small team, including the captain, a fisher, and a deckhand. The team works hard, typically arriving to the marina at 6 a.m., but the season is short, with the commercial lobster harvest running for 10 weeks in the spring and 4 weeks in the fall. For some, these few weeks totals their work for the entire year.
We're looking at 400 pounds, hopefully, at least. We'll see on the next couple.
William Kaplan is the fisher aboard Le Cap. He shares his frustrations with overfishing he sees from some fishers in the region.
There are regulations for those guys. It seems like a lot of ghost traps. They're overfishing. They fish longer than us.
Kaplan is talking about fishers from outside Listuguj. Andrew Barnaby is a deckhand. He says fishers who are getting stopped by Fisheries and Oceans Canada aren't following regulations.
Because you have the right to fish it doesn't mean you have to fish it out. Lobster season is going good.
Denny Isaac is the Associate Director of Natural Resources for Listuguj. He says it's the fishers' responsibility to uphold conservation.
It's impossible to police everything. We have to trust that our community will do the right things, whether it's safety to conservation, protecting the lobster. To keep continuing this, we got to make sure there's more lobster into the future. So they are definitely on the front lines of conservation.
Abiding by these regulations includes not fishing lobster that are too small.
So it's 83 mils. See that right here on their back? There's another lip right here. So it's got to be above that. That one just borderline, but I don't trust them.
What happens if fishers bring back a lobster that's undersized?
You get a fine.
When the day is done, the buyer is on site to purchase the lobster.
Right on. Thanks.
And the Listuguj Rangers are on standby to ensure the fishers follow code. So how successful was this fish for Wiseau and the team on board Le Cap?
Average. Average? Fishermen never tell the truth.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Listuguj, Mi'kmaq First Nation.
A young First Nations boy from northwestern Ontario is taking his family's housing situation into his own hands by running 70 kilometers to raise awareness for homelessness. APTN Sav Jonza caught up with him at the end of his journey and brings us this report.
While most people wouldn't like to go running in the rain, this 8-year-old boy couldn't be happier to do it.
I like running.
Chavi Williamson is running from his home in Grassy Narrows First Nation to the city of Kenora, Ontario. He's making the 70-kilometer trek by foot to bring awareness to the lack of housing in his community.
I'm running for my family, so we don't get kicked out of our house. We gotta get a new home.
Chavi's family has been struggling with chronic housing instability. They were recently approved by Chief and Council to live in a family services building until they found suitable permanent housing. But after only a month, they were told to find somewhere else to live because the agency needs the residents back. Without many alternatives to choose from, Chavi, his parents, and baby sister are struggling to find a place they can call their own before they're evicted.
He's concerned about her, and that's what he said to me, like, I'm worried about my little sister being homeless, and I'm worried that she's going to end up out in the cold.
Chavi's grandfather, Robert Williamson, has been at his side throughout his 5-day journey. Robert says the only option for Chavi's family is a dilapidated house that requires extensive renovation, which will take months to complete, all to be paid out of pocket through fundraising and hopeful reimbursement. Robert says the lack of housing in Grassy Narrows affects more than just his loved ones.
I understand that there's a lot of people that are in the same situation. And I support them, and I hope Chavi's run brings that to attention by the right people.
He says despite an announcement of 100 homes coming to the First Nation over the next several years, the demand is so great they've already been assigned to others, and Chavi's family didn't make the cut. At the end of his long run, Chavi was hoping to speak to his Member of Parliament, Eric Malillo, about the issue so it could be brought to the federal government, but his office was closed. In an emailed statement to APTN News, Malillo said in part that he will continue advocating for a plan to build more homes in the region. This crisis in northwestern Ontario remains a top priority for me and my Conservative colleagues, as thousands of people across the region are lacking a place to call home. Indigenous Services Canada did not get back to APTN News before airtime. We also wanted to hear from the Chief and Council about housing at Grassy Narrows. We haven't heard back from them either. Meanwhile, Chavi and his family say they will continue pushing so that everyone can have a safe place to live.
He is very determined, and I know there's not much he can do but support his family, and that I trust in him. His heart is, leads him, and he follows his heart.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Coming up next, we'll tell you about the sacred lightning rock in BC and its significance to the Indigenous people there. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Lightning Rock has always been a sacred place for the Sumas people, and after years of legal disputes, it has finally been returned to the Sumas First Nation. Ryan Cunningham reports.
On Sunday, October 19th, the Sumas First Nation hosted a celebration to honor the return of the land surrounding Lightning Rock, one of the Sumas people's most sacred sites, named for the massive boulder that was split by a lightning strike and carries deep cultural and spiritual significance.
We realized that with the sacredness of the site, that we want to keep it as natural as possible. We haven't talked about restoration of any of the pit houses or any markings of the burial sites, because it's my understanding that there is a mass burial site from when the smallpox pandemic came through. So I think there's a lot of archaeological kind of work and assessment that needs to be done on this site prior to any decisions being made to what is happening, community consultation, and working with our membership.
Lightning Rock is an ancestral burial site now located in the city of Abbotsford. Working with local officials and archaeologists, the site was officially returned to the nation on March 31st, 2025.
The protection of this site and the nature of it as a sacred place, as an ancient ancestral cemetery, as well as a place of a transformation that goes back to the deep really beginnings of time and the creation stories here, that it's land that really can't be used, it's not to be disturbed.
For thousands of years, Lightning Rock was a burial ground and a place of ceremony, where ancestors were laid to rest and spiritual connections were maintained. Today, those ceremonies return to Lightning Rock and the Semeth people.
I believe that when it's done in a ceremonial way, that allows the ancestors to be with us, and there's healing that happens at all ceremonies. So I believe there will be a lot of healing happening today along with the ceremony.
Ryan Cunningham, APTN National News, Vancouver.
3 years ago, the Southern Chiefs organization unveiled a residential school survivors totem pole in Assiniboine Park in Winnipeg. However, it was damaged during a thunderstorm this past August. Now, as Julia Ross reports, the SEO has announced a new plan for the totem pole.
The story behind this pole is a part of our resilience. It carries the voices of survivors, the memory of those who never returned home, and the strength of our nations to heal and to move forward. As SCO, we remain committed to preserving the totem pole and ensuring that its story continues to be shared in a meaningful and accessible way.
The totem pole has remained standing in Winnipeg's Assiniboine Park since last August's storm. Jerry Daniels spoke about the next steps for restoring the totem pole, but the effects from the damage are not known yet. Daniels says that the totem pole will be removed and placed in secure storage, waiting to be assessed.
Once the assessment is complete, we will work with Charles Joseph and other experts to restore the piece if it is possible and prepare it for its future home at Wewene Bagakanagan.
Wewene Bagakanagan is a project that is redeveloping the former Hudson's Bay building in downtown Winnipeg. Daniels says that through this restoration, reconciliation will be made visible in the heart of downtown Winnipeg. In fact, Wewene Bagakanagan means it is visible in Ojibwe.
This project will bring together housing, economic opportunity, cultural renewal, and a permanent and dignified home for the totem pole. It will provide a space where its message of remembrance and resilience will continue to inspire generations to come.
Wewene Bagakanagan would provide 370 affordable housing units for families, students, and veterans, as well as creating a public main floor to reflect and honor residential and day school survivors. Daniel says a more detailed construction update will take place in the weeks to come. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And that's your weekend wrap-up edition of APTN National News. We're back again for your daytime newscast next Monday at noon Winnipeg time. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next day.